So in the previous video we looked at how to set up BigBrother to do recording and mirroring of streams. What we saw there was that the files that are created by the recordings are stored on the server's file system, and to make those more easily accessible we can set up a Samba file share so that we can access them through the graphical interface of a PC, whether it be a Windows PC, Linux or Mac. So in this video we're going to have a look at how to set up Samba to access the recording files. So we're logged in as the root user to the same system that we set up in the previous video, and the first thing we need to do is do an apt-get install for Samba. And having done that, we need to edit the smb.conf file, which is the main Samba configuration file. The installation of Samba has told us here where the file is, and if we have a look inside that file, we can see that the Debian package has provided us with some default settings in there which are heavily commented. In the README file for BigBrother there is a sample configuration file which is a lot more concise, and so we're going to replace the default configuration file with the contents that are provided in here and then edit it as needed. So first thing we're going to do is do a backup of the default configuration file so that it's still there if we ever want to refer back to it. But what we can then do is delete the default one and start again with an empty file. So the way Samba configuration works, you have a global section in the file which defines the server-wide settings, and then you have a section for each file share that the server is going to serve up. So we'll create the global section first, and within that we need to set some basic options. We need to tell it what backend we want Samba to use for the usernames and passwords, and we're going to set that to TDB SAM. We're going to set bind interfaces only to yes, and then we're going to specify which interfaces, which IP addresses we want Samba to listen on. So interfaces equals, and then the IP address of our server, which is 192.168.253.220, and we'll put it on the loopback as well. We're going to set the server string, which is just how Samba identifies itself to clients, and we'll set that to Samba. %V gives the version of Samba, and %H gives the host name of the server. So that's just so that clients can see what server software they're connecting to on which host. We're going to create a workgroup name, which we'll set to CCTV. We'll set a NetBIOS name for the server. NetBIOS is basically an old alternative to DNS. It's not really used much these days, but we'll set it anyway. Set that to CCTV. We'll set security to user. That tells Samba to use the local password database for user authentication, which we'll set up in a little while. Tell it to use encrypted passwords. we shall set this machine as being the local master browser. Again, if you don't know what these various terms are, then delve into the Samba documentation. I'm just setting up a basic system here. Basically, the old way of accessing SMB file servers was that you could browse a list of servers on the network, and in order to do that, a certain machine on the network would maintain the browse list. We're setting it up that we want this machine to do this. That's basically it for the global section. We now need to set up a section for our file share. So I'm going to set up a file share called CCTV Demo. And within that, I'm going to put a comment which describes what it is. It will be CCTV recordings. And the path, which is where the files are that we want it to share out, which is /CCTV recordings. We're going to set it to read only, which means anybody connecting to it can't edit or delete the files, they can only view them. We're going to deny guest access, so you need a username to log in. And we'll set browsable to no and writable to no. Next thing we need to do is set the default file permissions, so the create mode for any files that are in the share. These are just standard Unix file permissions. And then we need to define who is allowed to access that file share. So we're going to say that the valid users who can connect, are anybody that's in the CCTV viewers group, which we do by using an @ symbol and then the name of the group. And the admin user for this file share will set just as the root user. And that's it for the SMB configuration file. What we now need to do is, for every user that's on our system that we want to allow to connect to the file share, we need to set up a password for them, because although it uses the Unix username for access, Samba uses a separate password database because of the way that it encrypts the passwords. So we'll save that file, and we need to now set up the username and password that we're going to use to log in. So we'll use user add, and we'll create a demo user. And we'll set a password for them. This is the Unix password. We need to set a separate password for Samba. We'll set a password up for their Unix account. Let's see if I get the right username. And we'll enter the password. And then we now need to put that user into the CCTV viewers group. So we'll edit the group file. And in the CCTV viewers group, we're going to add the username that we just created, which was demo. What we now need to do is set the Samba password, because the Samba password is stored separately by Samba because it uses a different encryption method than the Unix password database. You can set them to the same plain text value if you want, or you can have a different value, but we need to use a different command to actually set the password. So we need to use smb passwd password -a, because we're going to add a new user to Samba's password database. The username that we created, which was demo, and it's going to prompt us for the password. I'm going to type in the same password that we used for the Unix account. Having done that, that user should now be able to access the file share. But what we first need to do is restart Samba so that it takes notice of our new configuration file. So we can now bring up a file viewer on a Windows machine and go into the address bar and type in the address of our server. It will prompt us for the username and password. We'll type in the username and password that we just created and connect. And the folder is empty because by default, if you connect to a Samba server without giving any additional path, it will put you into your home directory. So to access our file share that we created, we need to put on the end /CCTV demo, which was the file share that we set up in the configuration file. And there you can see we've got the by day and by camera directory. Currently BigBrother's not running, so if we go into the by day directory for today, which is Friday, there's a file in there from when it was running earlier on, but there's nothing else in there. We can open that file up if we want to have a look at it. But currently it's not running, so if we go back to our command line and we start BigBrother up, what we'll notice now is that a new file has appeared with the current time on it, 1658, and we can see that the size is increasing as it's recording. So that provides a convenient way to access the recorded files from a PC, and you can access Samba shares on Windows as we've done here, or from the GNOME file viewer on Linux, or from a Mac.